This is going to be a quick video on how to do brakes on a 90s Honda Accord. This one in particular is a 1992. First, you can start by taking your brake caliper and brake caliper bracket off. There's going to be two 17mm bolts that hold the bracket on to the spindle and two 17mm bolts that hold the caliper onto the bracket. Then you can go ahead and just suspend the bracket out of the way for now using a bungee cord or some sort of a hook. Also, you're going to have this small cover over the upper control arm bolt held on by these two 10mm bolts that you can just zip off and gain access to that 17 or 19mm castle nut on the top here. After you've removed all of those, you can go ahead and move to the axle nut. That is a 36mm hex head socket. This is going to be pretty difficult to remove on some cars because a lot of the cases it's been on there for a long time. Your best bet is to go ahead and find somebody with a really strong impact, because that's going to be pretty much your best bet on taking it off. I've struggled with these many a time, so a strong impact is pretty much your best bet to remove that axle nut. Also around this area up here, you're going to have two 10mm bolts holding a brake line bracket on. Go ahead and remove those as well. You're going to be removing the spindle from the car to complete this brake job, so that means you're going to have to separate the ball joints as well. Here you can see we're using a pickle fork on an air hammer, which we plan to replace the ball joints upper and lower, so we don't mind on destroying them. There's plenty of other methods on removing them if you don't plan to replace them, but a pickle fork is your easiest method if you don't mind destroying them. The tie rods, on the other hand, we do not plan on using the pickle fork.
We're not replacing the tie rods because we don't have them, but we do have new lower and upper ball joints, so we went ahead and just used a pickle fork on my air hammer. But you don't need an air hammer, you can just use a pickle fork with a hammer and just bang on it. And for the tie rods, if you're also planning on saving them and you don't want to hit them with a pickle fork and destroy the boot, you just want to come out to where it's connected to and hit that with a hammer right there. So now at this point, for the upper control arms, there's two 17 or 19mm nuts from the top, and that entire assembly will just come out and you can replace that. The lower ball joint will require a little bit more work, so we'll go ahead and get to that now. All right, so you want to turn the spindle on the back side here, turn the spindle around, and you're gonna have these four bolts here. These ones are really hard to see, and on some models they'll just be a 12mm 6-point hex socket. On these ones, for whatever reason, it's a 10mm 12-point, and don't really like 12-point sockets, but go ahead and take all four of those off.
Here's another thing: if you don't plan on removing and replacing your wheel bearings, then your best bet is to go ahead and loosen these four bolts out, maybe a 1/4 inch a piece, and use a hammer or an air hammer and evenly smack all four of those around in a circular motion so that you can remove your wheel bearing all in one piece without damaging it, and that way you can install it again. Because if you just start hammering away on the inside of that or the rotor, you will damage the wheel bearing, and we're not replacing them in this video. If you do plan to replace them, you can hit it wherever you want after you take those four bolts out.
If you're replacing the wheel bearings, you can hit the wheel bearing, but we don't have wheel bearings, so we're trying to be gentle on them. And that'll separate the spindle from the wheel bearing and the rotor. Tackle this lower ball joint. There's a little C-clip here that you got to get out of place with some ring pliers, or you can use a flathead. And you can get it off like that. There's the old ring. Now I'm just going to hammer the shit out of this until it pops out this way. And a cotter pin. Just going to spray a little lubricant onto the base just to help it go in. It sits in there like this. It's Probably a better idea to not use like a crazy hammer for this. You just want to go far enough to where you can see that crack, because that's where the ring sits. After you knock the hub out of the wheel bearing, it'll either look something like this or the entire wheel bearing will come off of it. Then you can take out these 14 mil bolts right here, and as soon as you do that, the rotor will fall free from the hub and it looks like this. And then you go just throw your new one on. I'm putting a little bit of Loctite on these bolts just because I don't want them backing out. We're about finished up with this side.
And that's pretty much gonna wrap this video up. Hopefully it was able to help a few people. And if you're struggling with the ball joints, I have another video on my channel on how to replace 90s Honda ball joints. So definitely go take a look at that. Other than that, we got new uppers, new lowers, new brake pads and rotors, and we were able to save the wheel bearings and the tie rods. So that'll be probably next time, but nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.